Joining us in the studio is a sister who has been working for 27 years with women in the Muslim community. 10 of those years have been with the Islamic Women's Welfare Association. We welcome to the studio the president of IWWA, Sister Abla Kaddous. Okay, Sister Abla, in your vast experience of dealing with women in our community, what can you tell us about the reality of their situations and the problems that they face?
Working with the community, we face a lot, especially with women, we face a lot of problems, and women come to us with many of these problems. But for time's sake, I'm just going to address 2 issues today, if you don't mind.
Yep, sure.
And I want to give, out of those problems, I think I want to address, first of all, the brothers, because this is in relation to domestic violence. It's not fair that the brothers will humiliate our sisters and cause them a lot of hurt. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ, in his farewell speech, he addressed this issue very well, like it was his last sermon, but he never forgot the women. And he said, ألا واستوصوا النساء خيرا فإنهن عوان عندكم, which translates as, take good care of the women, for surely they are captives under you. And if we understand the word wastawsu, which means it's an ongoing taking care of the women. The Prophet ﷺ didn't say, usikum, just once, but he said wastawsu, which is an ongoing care for the women. And also the Prophet ﷺ said, khayrukum li ahli, wa ana khayrukum li ahli, which means the best amongst you are those who are good to their wives, and I am the best to my wives. And brothers, I would like you to respect our sisters, your wives. Respect them. Do not hit them. They have right to live like any human beings with security and safety. Fear Allah in our sisters. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-dhulm dhulumat yawm al-qiyamah." So you oppress them today, and you will be in the darkness of hellfire. This is a big responsibility on you, brothers, to look after your wives. And this is one of the most important problems that we face in the community. And unfortunately, that domestic violence is on the rise. With all the help from the government and from religious leaders to try and stop this, but unfortunately, it's still happening. So in a day like today, celebrating International Women's Day. So like, inshallah, by the time next year comes and we talk, inshallah, we would like to see this going down.
Sister Abla, also, I think you mentioned the issue of domestic violence. Now, domestic violence doesn't actually have to be physical. I know some women, exactly, verbal, emotional, social, and I think that's, levels. You're right. In the Muslim community, especially, it doesn't have to be about bashing your wife.
No.
Just, words, abuse, making her
feel down. All
that's
the
right.
Very
that's
treatment
right.
of your wife.
And this will stop her from carrying on her role as a mother and a wife.
Right.
So I'll ask the brothers, please look after your wife. Okay. And this is one advice. This is an advice that I'll give out of what we see.
That's
and what
right.
we hear.
The reality of the situation.
Mm-hmm. And another advice I would like to give on a day like today is to our sisters.
Mm-hmm.
There is in a community a high number of sisters who are not married, and they age and they still didn't have the nasib of getting married. Actually, like, we have obligation in a community. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah An-Nur, وَأَنْكِحُوا الْأَيَامَ مِنْكُمْ وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ, which translates as, and marry those among you who are single and the pious of your servants. So we have a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have to encourage and we have to help young
community members to be married.
To get married.
So that's like a blessing to matchmakers. Go ahead.
And also the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ya ma'ashar al-shabab, man istata'a minkum al-ba'a falyatazawwaj." O young men, whoever among you can afford to get married, let him marry. So we need to understand, and our sisters need to understand, that it's not up to us, or it's not up to the sisters to go around and look for and to find a husband. This is a provision. It's risk from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is written when you are going to get married and who are you going to marry. So this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
It's a nasib. We say the word nasib, but at the same time we don't know really what it means. But if we understand that this is risk, like money, like health, like anything else,
it will come to you.
It will come. It is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we don't have to go out of our ways as sisters to go and do the wrong thing, to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to find a husband on our own by going and maybe try to talk to boys freely, to flirt, to date, to talk on the phone, to on the net, Facebook, at uni, at school, to try to find someone. We work so hard. I'm aging, I'm getting old, and I have to find someone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, من يتق الله يجعل له مخرجا ويرزقه من حيث لا يحتسب, which means that whoever fears Allah is conscious of Allah, is cautious of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will find ways out for him, for means that you never expected, and also will provide for you. وَيَرْزُقُكُمْ. He is the one who is going to provide that husband for you.
Well, in your experience, sisters that do go out and do that, what are the reality consequences that they do face?
Most probably we know that the Prophet ﷺ warned us from any mixing, any two alone, the third is a shaitan. We know that if the Prophet ﷺ told us this, we have to believe. We are Muslims, we're believers. Right. So we know. So we are not allowed to be alone with a man. This is number one. And if we do disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how can you expect to have a successful life built on disobedience? Leave it to Allah. Out of nowhere, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put someone in front of you. If you fear Him, He will send you the right person to your doors. You don't have to work hard to find him.
So what are some avenues? Obviously there's sisters out there, and I think brothers have the same problem too, that they are, for example, reaching the age where they want to settle down. No, they're well established, they're educated.
Due to the non-mixing thing, they don't really much.
Yeah, so how do they meet people?
This is something that we need to work out together. Okay, as sisters we can come up with ideas, okay, halal ideas of mixing. At the moment at IWWA we have a program called marriage facilitation, which we have applications for brothers and application for sisters. And if I know the customary thing in our culture is aib, is how can you go and I put an application? It's inappropriate. It's not happening in our community, but we have to come out of this.
So what do? You collect biodata about both, and then you match them,
and we try to match,
and so that way it's facilitated in an Islamic way.
Right.
And
yes.
Okay, obviously.
So if we have, in the best of our knowledge, we see a brother will say, I want a sister with these qualities. Okay, so we say, okay, this is, but the most important thing that we give the number of the girl to the wali.
So
not to her.
Okay, so her caretaker.
In the form it says who is to be contacted. So we don't want a straight confrontation between the brother and the sisters who are looking for marriage.
Right,
okay,
so it ends up being a bit of a traditional way of marriage, but it's just that you're facilitating in the middle. Yes,
because if we would like to sit with brothers and sisters and see if they have any good idea of doing this, as long as it's halal. Okay, maybe like a barbecue. I know that long time ago, many years ago, New South Wales University used to run barbecues where the brother will sit on one side and the girls will sit on side, but it's barbecue in one place.
Yeah.
Okay, so they get to see. Okay.
Well, I think there's many events in Sydney that have that, where you'd be exposed to the brothers or vice versa. But I think, as you said, and our advice for the audience would be careful of the trap of the shaitan in terms of speaking to a brother, getting to know him for the sake of getting to know him for marriage, and later on, after the relationship gets very serious, realizing that oops, I didn't go about this the right way. It's not, and Allah, as you said, Allah's blessings is the most important.
Will bless whatever starts. It's like when you start a marriage in obedience obedience of Allah. You cannot have a wedding disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and oops, next month I'm divorced. So start on the right track, obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so this is the two messages that I want Allah. And by next year, inshallah, I would love to see
inshallah
and will be inshallah coming on a long way.
We hope so. Definitely. Inshallah, next International Women's Day we'll have like an assessment of the past year,
and inshallah we'll see how it goes.
Inshallah. And I wish you all the best in the program.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio today, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your organizations. Jazakallah khair.